if there are asanas which are good together, or can we just mix, or how I feel, what I like to do, or
Yes, the last one.
how I feel?
Yes. In relation to asana practice, there are also many dogmas.
Yeah.
There are people who say if you do a forward bend, you always have to do a back bend.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are people who say you should never finish your asana practice with a back bend, always with a forward bend. It's all rubbish. There is no serious yoga book that gives such kind of directions about yoga practice, about asana practice. So indeed, you have to follow your own feeling. In the beginning, that's difficult because you are not sure yet about your feeling. Most people. So you develop that simply by practicing, and as long as you don't know, simply follow the schedule. And while following the schedule, you will become more and more familiar, you become more and more in touch with yourself, how you feel during the exercises, and yeah. When I started teaching yoga, I always made a list of exercises that I planned to do before the class. And I did that for a while. And along the way, I more and more started to ignore the list of exercises that I made, and I just started to follow my feeling. And these days, before going into class, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I just follow my feeling. It depends on the people who are in the class, and with the exercises also, I think at a certain point you will come to a nice flow of exercises that follow up on each other. I think at a certain point you will find a certain logic in it. In that respect also, I think it is good that you try my 1-hour classes a couple of times, so that you can experience that. For the rest, most of the things that are being said about asana practice are dogmatic. And that's why I never give such guidelines in class also. Remember the issue about having a monthly period? Almost every yoga school where you go, you are sternly warned not to practice inverted poses. And then often it is said because poison blood will return back into your body. That is rubbish. That is dogmatic. And you just have to follow your feeling in that respect. People say you should not take a shower after yoga, you should not eat directly after yoga, you should not eat before yoga, etc. There is all some truth in there, but you have to follow your feeling. It is obvious when you have a big meal and then you practice 1 or 2 hours after that big meal, you will feel that something is in the way, something is bothering you. So that's very obvious. But if you are very hungry, you should eat something at least before you have a long yoga class. So then you limit yourself to a small, light meal, which will not be in the way. In respect to what you do after the yoga class, you know, when you practice yoga, you create another condition in yourself. One that is harmonious, one that is quiet and peaceful. And the moment that you get up, you can see that always after class. The moment you get up, people very easily discard of that new condition, that new atmosphere, often within a minute. And people start being busy, chatting, and busy with all kinds of material things. Try to consider that it is an art in itself to actually try to maintain that condition when you leave. Have you felt this already when you practice? start being busy, almost unconsciously, you just lose that condition very easily. Especially in the beginning stages of your development. So try to be aware of that. But that is also a matter of feeling. So just follow your feeling in everything. You have to follow your feeling. And when you feel resistance, investigate. Why do you feel resistance? What is it that is causing that resistance? That is self-study. I think by now you have understood that asana, practice of asana is not just physical exercise. The characteristic of physical exercise is that there is, in general, there's a generalization, but in general, the characteristic of physical exercise is that it's purely physical. There's no mental or spiritual aspect involved. Having said that, of course, people who do physical exercise are generally more healthy, mentally and also spiritually. So it is not a black-white situation, and also, of course, certainly not true that, also not in the point of view of yoga, or from the point of view of yoga. It's not, absolutely not true that exercise is bad. Any exercise is good. But in yoga we just fine-tune that and we bring it to a higher level. And we bring it to a higher level by letting mental and spiritual level involved in asana, in the physical process. And you do that in the first place simply by standing still. You kind of force yourself to stand still. When you understand how this works also, then you understand also that most of the yoga practices that we have these days are not yoga. Remember this. So, surely, the flow yogas, the power yogas, all the very physical forms of yoga, a good workout is better than doing no exercise. But it is not yoga. There is no harmony. And harmony, creating harmony, that is the main purpose of yoga. And everything that comes forward out of that harmony. Because harmony is the foundation for all your development. You will see yourself, we have all developed over the years that we have lived, but the moment that you start practicing yoga, which includes harmony, the element of harmony, you notice that your development goes very rapid, very fast, because of harmony. So harmony is the most important ingredient of what you do. But in that sense also, we have to make a switch in our mind about the practice of yoga. We are all human beings, and so we want to do things. We have an idea of how we want to do something. We have an ideal. We are eager, but then we find that we are busy. We have a family to take care of, or we have a career that we are also focusing on, which is important for building a future, having stability, having a roof over the head and meals a day, 3 meals a day, etc. That is important. And you find yourself having conflicts there with your yoga practice, and then you become frustrated or disappointed, unsatisfied. And we all have this, for sure. So when that happens, it is important to remember the yamas and the niyamas that we have learned until so far. And contentment, in this respect is very important. Even if you have only 10 minutes to practice, that is more than 0 minutes. And rather than being angry for lack of time or frustrated, it's better to look from the sunny side and be happy, be content with the fact that you have been able to do yoga for 10 minutes. This will lead to a transformation of how you look at things, especially how you look at yourself. But eventually that will spread to how you look at everything in your life. You become milder, gentler, softer, more emphatic also. Emphatic. It starts with yourself and will then spread outward. And this is a very important switch that you have to make in respect to your practice. You do what you can, and you are satisfied with that. You have to apply this also to your asana practice, how you practice asana. Because we all want to be perfect when we do an exercise. But that perfectionism leads to pain, so we violate non-violence principle, ahimsa. And it leads to rajas. It creates Shakti energy, so it destroys harmony, sattva. It is not easy to make such a switch, so you simply play with it. In your daily life, every time you find yourself being confronted with that resistance, frustration, dissatisfaction, the first step is that you actually become aware of that. That you see yourself, that you see that frustration, and that you consciously transform that frustration into positive thinking, remembering contentment. This is very powerful. If you can adopt contentment in your life, life will become so much easier. Not only for you, also especially with the people you are dealing with in your life. People you work with, your family, everybody. And as a result of that, more and more synergy will occur. Maybe it is for this reason that yoga is surrounded by a kind of a religious shroud, a religious veil, because some devotion is needed from you. Not just a physical exercise, but you put your whole heart into it. And yoga is not a religion, but it leans towards it because of its spiritual aspects. People who approach yoga in such a way, presenting it as a religious something, they simply have not understood. Stay away from those kind of people. They're creepy. The whole issue of asana practice is to create harmony, but not only harmony. First of all, we have to transform our condition. People in general are lacking energy, both Shiva and Shakti energy. So in general, people are lacking energy, and the energy that we have is not harmonious. And by practicing Asana, in the first place, you start generating larger amounts of both energies. And if you practice asana in the right way, then that energy, that increase of energy, will also be more harmonious than before. It is for this reason that most people who have their first yoga experience, if it's the right experience, they're very surprised about how good it feels. And people, because of that, become very interested, even eventually addicted to the practice of yoga, because it feels so good. If you look at how asana develops, it is not about becoming an acrobat, but with the progress of the exercises and their increasing difficulty, you are actually creating more and more of that energy. You create more and more power, physically also, which you need as a basis for meditation. Because meditation is concentration of the mind control, and that is only possible if you have, first of all, large amounts of energy, and that energy being harmonious. The more harmonious you are, the less distractions you have mentally. So, in fact, asana is subordinate to everything else in yoga. It is only a tool to generate more energy, quantity-wise, and also quality-wise. So if you understand that, then you practice your exercises with another eye, with another look on it. Rather than trying to be perfect, you more and more feel your body, how it is performing the exercise, how it is affecting you. You feel the energy that is affected by your exercise. And with time, you feel that you get better and better. And at a certain point, you are ready for a new exercise that is more difficult. At the beginning of the course, I have explained the principle of sukha. And the principle of sukha means that you are easy, even when you do a difficult exercise. But when you do a difficult exercise while you are not prepared yet, you cannot be easy. So there is no harmony. That is why people who are advanced in yoga, when they do very difficult exercise, they still look very harmonious. They're not grinding their teeth and their face totally distorted under the effort of doing the exercise. They still look calm. And that's at that moment you think, wow, it looks so easy. And that is exactly it. That is sukha. It is, as an outsider, as a bystander, it looks almost effortless. It is not effortless for the person who is doing it, but the person is in control, and that is the difference. So practice a lot. That is good. Over time you will be stronger and more flexible. And at the same time, you adopt a new attitude. And when you adopt that new attitude as a result of your asana practice, you will see that your meditation becomes better too. Especially meditation, because meditation is much more sensitive than your physical exercise. So the principles of non-violence, contentment, truthfulness, purity also, they apply even more to meditation. So if you understand and apply these principles in your asana practice, you will eventually automatically apply it to your meditation as well. Asana literally means standing still pose. So that is what asana should be. When we practice asana, physical yoga postures, it must be standing still. Otherwise it is not yoga. It's as simple as that. Why do we have so many moving forms of yoga? Well, they were just inventions of the last 20 years to commercialize yoga. Because yoga, the way we practice it, is only for a small number of people. Other people are simply not ready for such kind of practice. Commercialized yoga, most of the yoga practices are simply like other exercises, aerobics or gymnastics, but with a little deal of yoga to it. Having said that, if you're interested in teaching yoga, I recommend that you do have experience in other forms of yoga too. Otherwise you will have a hard time. On the other hand, if you are stubborn and principled, you stick to the traditional form of yoga, like I have done. But that is not always easy. You had a question, Elizabeth?
This is something that I've kind of been struggling with a little bit, but when you talk about, you list things that make yoga work, and the last one is detachment from people's company.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, like, what you meant there exactly. Is that just talking about, like, not being dependent on people, or?
Yes, in all forms. In all forms. You have yoga practice, especially in the beginning stages of your development, is very selfish. Because yoga is self-study. But that is not the kind of selfish that we consider. Usually when we talk about selfishness, egoism, we consider that to be bad. It is bad when it only considers your own interest about when it comes to material things. But yoga practice is selfish, but it leads to development, real development. And the developments that you go through transform you into a being that is more valuable to other people. So although it is selfish, it is for the good of the whole. It is for the good of society, eventually. So in that sense, you have to respect the time that you need to reserve for yourself without feeling guilty to other people that feel shortchanged as a result of your practice of yoga. You simply have to respect the time that you need for yourself to practice, to reflect on things, contemplate on things that you learn and that you realize. That's a very important part of your development. So it is impossible come to such kind of development if you are not being a little bit selfish. And people, company, simply distracts from that. That is why people people who take their yoga very serious, they isolate themselves for a period in their lives. They go to a remote place somewhere in the mountains or so. The real hardcore people, they do that all by themselves. They don't go to a temple or a monastery or an ashram or so. They just go into the forest or into the mountains. Also, the temples and ashrams and other places, they have also commercialized. It's one big commercial circus these days. It's very difficult, even in India, to find good, sincere places. There are many, but there are also many purely commercial places. And it's because all those commercial places are overshouting the good ones that it's difficult to find the good ones. So you have to follow your feeling also in that sense. If you are looking for something like that, go onto the internet, listen to what your friends have to say about their experiences in such places, and then you just have to try it out. If it doesn't feel good, you move on. When you have a partner living in the same house, or you have a roommate or a couple of roommates or so, try to plan your yoga when you are alone at home. Because the slightest activity of the people, even when they are in other rooms, they do not have the sensitivity that you have when you are quiet and focusing on your asana or meditation. And every little thing they do will disturb you. Whether they watch TV or cook in the kitchen and you hear all the pans and utensils clanging. Just normal daily things will disturb. So you try to plan around that. Too much discipline. Discipline is needed to achieve things in life, obviously. But if you approach yoga in a too rigid way, very disciplined way also, you also destroy yoga. Even worse, if you practice very rigidly, there comes a point that you will start to hate yoga. While it is supposed to be good for you. So play. Have the discipline to practice, because without it you won't get anywhere. But sometimes when there are obstacles, when you just don't have the time, try to also respect that and accept that. There are some issues about water and fire and rock, mentioned also here, except for the fire issue. But we will come across that when we read the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and when we discuss the chakras also. Obviously we consist out of 90 or 80% of water. The water has a big influence.
How does facing east change the asana, or does it?
That has to do with the alignment of energies. The earth, in the first place, is spinning towards the east, and so it is felt by people who are super sensitive that if you practice with the direction of which the earth is spinning, there is more harmony. Based upon this principle, you have Feng Shui also, Feng Shui. You have to be super sensitive to feel that. So you have to assume that that is correct, as long as you can feel that. So it is recommended that you practice towards the east. So that is where the sun comes up in the morning. That is for harmony. There's no other reason, just for harmony. Because you want to fine tune, you want to create as much harmony as possible. So you do that also on a very fine level, even if you can't feel it. But don't be rigid about it. Don't be fanatic about it. If I'm in a room that has a big window, but the window is to the east, and the west is a dead wall, blind wall, I will turn to the window anyway, because that just feels much better, rather than facing the blind wall all the time. So follow your feeling also in that sense. Don't be radical. The day has a waxing and waning of Shiva and Shakti energy. In the morning, starting from around 3 o'clock, Shakti energy starts to rise. As a result of that, the flowers open, birds become active, jump out of their nest and fly around to get some food, start singing their songs and communicating with each other. That's all the result of Shakti rising. The best time to practice asana, therefore, is in the morning. In line with the rising Shakti, you practice physical exercise to support the process of waking up. In fact, let energy circulate again after a night full of Shiva. As the day goes by, after the afternoon, after around 3 o'clock or so, slowly but certainly, Shakti energy starts to wane and Shiva energy starts to rise. And so very often people around 4 o'clock or so, they have an energy dip, which most of the times is solved with a cup of coffee. In the evening you can practice asana, but you have to be very careful not to practice too physically. Because if you do, you will have the same effect as going to the gym. You will not be able to sleep for the next 3-4 hours. And that is actually a very good indication to yourself to show whether you practice asana correct or not. Because it is an indication that you have generated too much Shakti. When I started practicing yoga, I practiced every evening before sleeping, and I would always fall asleep immediately. After the last asana, I would lie down in savasana on my bed, that means on my back, and I would fall asleep. And very often, I would wake up early in the morning in exactly the same position as I would have fallen asleep. But that's only possible if your practice of asana is very sattvic, very harmonious. If you create too much rajas, even though you're tired, you will not be able to fall asleep. You need several hours to cool down, to settle down the rajas before you can sleep. But if you can practice in such harmonious way, it's absolutely marvelous. I advise you to try, because it's very powerful. You have very deep, nourishing sleep, and you wake up with a feeling as if you have not slept. Not in a negative way, but you wake up super awake, super energized, super fresh. without the usual spider webs in your head, swollen eyes, and all the symptoms that you have usually when waking up in the morning out of a deep tamas. Your sleep is very harmonious, and so you don't have to wake up battling the Shiva condition, and so you are very energized in the morning. Not only in the morning, but throughout the whole day. It changes your entire day. In the second paragraph, first page, there's something about mantra. Forget about that. That is a little bit, the mantra is in fact the name of the exercise. And so you repeat the name of the exercise for yourself. We have done that from the beginning, in silence. You can consider that to be a mantra. If you repeat the name every time you do the exercise, you will absorb. In a natural way, you will memorize the name of the exercise. You will absorb the feel to it, to the name, the vibration of the name. So in that sense, you can consider it to be a mantra. Finishing with Om in the same paragraph. It's not singing Om with your physical voice, but you do that simply by standing or sitting or lying still after the asana with your eyes closed and letting this energy settle down. And the singing of Om here means that you are listening to nada. Very nice. That is how asana practice is supposed to be. Because the physical action itself is not important. It is the result of the physical action that is important. So, after having completed the asana, energy that is circulating in your body should be harmonious. And if that is the case, it feels very nice. It feels very delicious, even, I should say. And that is more important than the physical action. The action is only a tool. But it's the harmony that ensues from physical action that is most important. Because that is what it is all about. After each exercise, when you have asymmetric exercise, when you have left side and right side, like triangle pose, in between also, in between left and right side, take a little moment to let it settle down and feel that energy circulating in you, feel that harmony spreading in you, because that is why you do it in the first place. Questions? Yes?
Question about, you told us to visualize the pose. Do you visualize like yourself in the pose, or kind of like a stick figure?
Yeah, if you look like a stick figure, why not? No. You know what this is about? This is kind of neuro-linguistic programming. Look what happens. You are not aware of this yet, but why do you move? You sit on a sofa, on a chair, and suddenly you stand up to do something. Why do you do that? Something urged you to do that. That is because subconsciously you are thinking of something that you have to do. Subconsciously you are thinking, you are kind of mentally preparing for something, but you do it subconsciously. That's why you don't know of this. But because you are imagining the action that you have to do, you start physically coming into action. So that is the correct way to do physical action, if you do it consciously. So when you practice asana, after repeating the name for yourself, you visualize the pose in order to let the body move on its own. If you do it like that, you are more connected with what you do. Your heart is in it. The other side of the coin, if you look around you, you will see that people very often do the exercise mentally. They say, oh, okay, the next exercise that is the triangle. Okay, let's do the triangle, and poof, and they jump into the pose. And if you look, then you can feel that people are not really connected with what they do. Although you think you are connected because you think about the pose, you are doing it mentally, but your heart is not in it. And that is usually when alignment is not correct. Because you are not in touch with how the body is moving, how it is bending and stretching. While if you do it correctly, and first visualizing also, and you concentrate, several things happen actually. First of all, you are fully aware of what's happening, how your body is moving and bending, how the joints are functioning and so on. But when you are concentrated, your body naturally stretches up. Like when you meditate, when you deeply concentrate on nada, your spine erects involuntarily. And ideal in yoga asana is that there is always an element of erecting. That is utthita, the element of utthita in the triangle poses. And you can do that physically, of course, and in the beginning probably you have to. But if you make concentration on nada more and more part of your practice, you will see that when you are, for example, in Utthita Trikonasana, and you are concentrated, you are focused, then you automatically stretch up. And that is ideal. To come back to your question, Katie, if you do this consciously, you will be able to perform the things that you do in your life, besides yoga. You will start approaching in the same way. And the result of what you do will get better, because you are more involved with what you do. I always take the example of washing dishes or vacuum cleaning the house. Most people do that not being there with their heart. They're either watching TV or listening to music, or even if they don't do that, they are so busy in their mind that it's just a chore that has to be done, a task that has to be done. But they're not really connected with what they do. And as a result, if you check the dishes after they were washed, they're still dirty. If you check the room after the vacuum cleaning, there's still dirt here and there and everywhere. Because it has been done just like that. Overlooking all the corners and not under the chairs and the sofa. And it's really true. Check your house and you will see. But when you do it consciously, you cannot do it like that anymore. You simply can't. And that is a form of perfection, because everything that you do it to the best of your ability because you are connected with what you do. You are involved, you are engaged with your heart. And it's very nice to do things like that, because you see result, real result.
About water, and so you shouldn't practice any of the saunas near the ocean. Does it take your energy away, or
no water?
Because I would think it would give you more energy.
Yes, practicing on the beach is very spiritual, but stay away from the water, from the shoreline. At least one bow shot. That is about 50 meters, I think. 50, 75 meters. No, do it on the beach, but stay away from the shoreline. Water has an enormous attraction, and it can harmonize, but don't come too close. Don't stay too close to the water.
What kind of effects will that water have when you're practicing?
Water has an enormous effect on you because you exist out of water, so there is a sympathy phenomenon. And what we do in yoga is we try to harmonize all the levels in us, not only the water, also earth, fire, air, and ether levels. And if you stay too close to water, or too close to fire, or too close to earth, which in this case is rock, it affects one level too much, while not the other levels. And so that's not good for creating harmony in all the 5 centers. You can, an easy example of this is when you practice in a narrow room. Narrow room oppresses you. You feel that immediately if you're a little bit sensitive. So, in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika it's written that you have to stay 1 bow shot away from rock, which in our modern society that we live in means that you need to have some space in which to practice. The room in which you practice needs to accommodate not just your physical body, but your energy field. And if the room, even if the room is large enough, but it is full of objects, furniture, for example, you will feel disturbance there. And that is not even so subtle. That is pretty obvious. If you look at houses that were built in the 16th, 17th century, in Europe and also in America, you see that the first floor, where the owner of the building lives, has a very high ceiling, up to 5 meters, 5, 6 meters, with very large windows and wide space. Because they knew of this principle, consciously or subconsciously, but they knew of this principle. Low ceiling oppresses your energy field, your aura. Because space costs money, the higher floors have a lower ceiling because the servants live there, or the tenants. But the first floor, owner of the building, usually a tradesman or something like that, they have very high ceiling. So in that sense, you have to translate rock into the walls of your house or your room. And be aware of this also when you practice. How try to feel what you feel. Try to be aware of what you feel when the room is too small. Of course, if you have just a 1-room place, or you live with a family, and you have just 1 room, you have to do with what you have. Then you just accept that situation. But the next time that you look around for another room or another place to live, you consider this. And you try to find a place. The first thing that you do when the landlord opens the front door is, where can I practice yoga? This room? Yeah, this room is perfect. I want to have this house. But until then, you just accept and you have lemons, you make lemonade out of it. In Holland, we say you have to row with the oars that you have. That's all you can do at that moment. But next time, you try to look for improvement. There are 6 principles that make yoga work. There should be a 7th principle, patience. But patience is very much related to belief, faith, and confidence. Steadfastness is also related to patience. But these principles are not only important for yoga, they are important for your life, to be successful in your life. You must become a very stubborn yogi, strong-willed. And in the beginning, of course, you will have conflicts as a result of that, but you learn to become tactful and careful and prudent about how you go about these kind of things. But you don't compromise on principles. It's very important to be principled, because that is very powerful in your development as a spiritual being. But at the same time, you will see that it will get you far in life. In the beginning, it causes a lot of turbulence, conflicts, but you will find your way, and that is the most important. It is very important for self-respect also, dignity. So steadfastness, courage also, very important. Because without courage, you will not be able to go through this whole process of transformation. Because you are constantly being confronted with yourself, especially with your limitations. But you are constantly being confronted with all your qualities, be they good or bad. And there is no good and bad, but in the process, if you come to the conclusion, if you find that you have bad qualities, you will see that they are not bad, they are just a certain quality that you have, and you have to find a way to work with them. Because in the end, everything has a merit. The one before the last paragraph is important. It says that you always do optimal effort. That is the middle way that we discussed last Saturday. No effort, or a very weak effort, doesn't lead to anything. Too much effort when you are fanatic, when you do the exercises, also meditation, when you try too hard, you destroy the harmony. So, and this is difficult, it is compared to walking on the edge of a razor blade. Because it's very easy to do either too much or too little. And you learn to find a real way simply by trying, by playing. Do not be afraid to make mistakes, because mistakes are not negative, are not bad. We have to stop considering mistakes as being something bad. We are indoctrinated from the moment that we are born that making a mistake is bad. This is not true. On the contrary, we learn from mistakes. Especially when you start doing this consciously in the process that we are in. So do not be afraid to make mistakes. They are there to help us. They are our teachers. We will come back to this later when we discuss other philosophies. Simply make your mistakes, then draw your conclusions, and try to do better next time. That is how it works. Questions? Yeah?
First lesson talked about the creation of the universe before the universe started to materialize.
Yeah. apostles, I think it was John, he said, the first sentence of his chapter says, first there was the Word. That is the story of the creation in yoga. First there was only Aum, which is harmony. It's a vibration that has not materialized. As long as there is harmony, there is no materialization. It's a little bit complicated story when you are being confronted with it for the first time. But this is the story of why your soul has manifested in a physical body. Every philosophy and religion has a story like this. First, there was pure harmony. There were no materials. There were no planets. There were no stars. There were no gases. There was only pure harmony, which is one straight line. There is no minus, there is no plus, there is no sattva, there is no shakti, there is no tamas. Just a straight line, pure harmony. As a result of a subtle desire, we call it a subtle desire. The subtle desire is called a asana. A desire steers something in you. You know that, huh? When you feel desire arising in you for whatever, some energy will steer in you and put you into action. That is how things materialize. That desire is a piti, is a movement of energy which bumps into the harmony. And it will cause a bend. But as a result of this bend, there will be a counter reaction to come back to the middle again, and the harmony is disturbed. And the process of tamas and rajas and the duality basically has started. This is the story of the Big Bang. The moment that harmony was disturbed by subtle desire of an intelligence that is out there in the universe, things started to materialize. First, gases. So you have this disturbance, which becomes more and more violent, undulating, until at a certain point, it's like a wave cresting and crashing into the shoreline. At this point, it becomes an atom. It's called an anu. Anu is an atom, which means that material has started to manifest. From this point, you have the story of Adam and Eve, the downfall. And we are part of that downfall. The energy is condensing more and more. That is why we have the tragic situation that 95% of all people have a tamas condition. Because that is the natural tendency of the process of the materialization of the universe of which we are part. So the universe, after the Big Bang, there were no solid materials yet, only gases. But those gases solidify. That is the process of the downfall, or the condensation as we call it in yoga. And eventually, planets and stars started to manifest itself. And, yeah?
So God desired the universe to come into existence, and this desire created disharmony.
Yes.
And so could you say disharmony is good? We created something.
Well, first of all, there is no good and bad in yoga. And this is a little bit advanced story altogether. But energy, intelligence, of which we are all part. So you have to consider the idea that we have existed in the form of intelligence, in the form of energy, billions of years ago already. And with the subtle desire to manifest, we have also started to manifest eventually in the present form that we are in. After billions of years of evolution, it has resulted into this. What we try to do in yoga, actually, is to reverse this process. We try to become divine again, on pure harmony. And that requires a lot of effort, of course. And maybe we will not succeed. So it is important that we do what we can, but we enjoy it, and we do not separate ourselves from the reality of the life that we live in, the society that we live in. Adam and Eve didn't fall from paradise because of eating an apple or because they had sex. That is just a symbolic story. They were divine beings, not materialized yet in a physical body. It is basically the principle of yin and yang, or Shiva and Shakti. And so, as a result of their desire to manifest, they came down to earth, as it is called. They fell down from paradise, as it is called. And then the struggle started. Yeah?
So in ancient Sanskrit texts, there was a word, there was an acknowledgement of the phenomena of the atom. They gave the word the name atom.
This is the yoga interpretation of the story of the creation of the universe.
And so how do people translate that as atom being what we understand to be the atom? What's that meant?
I don't know how to answer that question. It's a very intellectual question. And I think it's not constructive in understanding this.
I don't know, it was hard for me to understand.
Well, contemplate on it yourself then. And see what conclusion you come up with.
What was the question?
Where was the word invented? Where does the concept come from? Nobody knows. Because our history is only 5,000 years old in a written form. Before that, there are millions, billions of years of evolution also, which were not written down. So there are many concepts that we deal with that were intuitively understood by the ancient people on a very deep level as a result of their ability to contemplate, but they've never written it down. They've never intellectually written it down, trying to make sense of it, but on the intuitive level, they understood all this already.
That's what, yeah, I understand that and I accept that. I find it very interesting that because we live in a world where it's very empirical, where you need to have proof, material proof to believe that something exists. And
Yes.
it's very interesting that without the instruments that modern physicists can use, that ancient people were able to learn.
Yes, that is why, but I understand perfectly what you are saying. That is why on the second page, it is said that you need belief, faith, and confidence. Because if you are a pure scientist, approaching everything in the way that you just described, you will come to this class and you will go against everything that is being said here. Why? Because you need proof of everything. Because everything has to be put into statistics and be made concrete. And in blockage in your way of development. So you have to trust more your intuition, which is of a higher order, than your intellect. And you use the intellect only to make sense of things. So you have to play with that also. Play with your quest to understand everything. Because if you try to understand things on an intellectual level, mentally, you will get stuck. While if you absorb it, and you contemplate on it from an intuition level, you have a feeling about what it is about. And that is more accurate, actually, than the intellectual knowledge or insight about it, but it is difficult to put it in statistics and make it concrete. Yeah? So the essence of the story is important. If you go very much into detail, we will lose ourselves and we will not be busy anymore with what it is about, with the essence of it. And then we start bickering about this and that. Yeah? But
what are some of the main texts that describe this occurrence? Are there certain texts? Where did you?
Hindu philosophy lies at the basis of yoga. Hinduism is in fact a branch of yoga. So you can, if you study the religious text of Hinduism, the sutras, the Vedas, there are many Vedas, you will come across this. When you look at the chakras, we will discuss this in the afternoon when we talk about prana, energy. It's all related. Below the diaphragm, you have your lower desires and your emotions. Above the diaphragm, you have your higher emotions and desires, the heart. And above the throat, you have the intellect. Above that, you have your spirituality, your divinity. We were, as an entity, we were divine. Not manifested in a physical body. Because we were pure divine. The moment that we started to have subtle desire, according to the philosophy, we started to develop a physical body. But we are also part of the downfall, so we started with divinity, then we came to what we call the mind in general, and we are part of the downfall, and we became lower and lower on the ladder of evolution as the downfall and the condensation continues. And when you practice yoga, actually everything that you do in yoga is designed to bring that energy, that consciousness, to bring that up again. And the higher the better. And eventually, you will become that divine being again. Until you are that divine being, of course, you will develop at least many divine characteristics. This is the story also of reincarnation. When as a human being, in this life, you have a kind of a duty to reach divinity as much as you can. Divinity is sattva, harmony. One does not go without the other. When you die, physically, when you die, If you die by violence, if you die very unexpectedly, while you are still full of desire to accomplish things in your life, you are very disharmonious. Because you are very disharmonious, you are full of desire, your soul ascends from your physical body has died, will rot away, your energy is there, up there. It will come back to earth very quickly again in a physical body, because you are full of desire, very disharmonious. Try to follow this. When you die, being very harmonious, you are lacking that desire that makes you manifest again on earth. You are very peaceful when you die, very harmonious, so your soul, your energy, will stay up there much longer before it will return to earth. And believe it or not, but look at what happens after every war. After every war we have a baby boom, which can be explained in this way. But many people die in a violent way. They have to return to work out their desire.
You could say the Renaissance that followed the plagues. You could also say the Renaissance that followed the plagues of Europe.
Every big crisis, and you can see that in the history of Europe, every big crisis, as in yoga we consider that as a purification, has led to an enormous leap forward in the evolution of humankind. To the point, well, I don't want to go into that again, but to the point that what you see happening now is that there are worldwide bodies that are working very hard to spread more harmony around the world. United Nations, for example, just to give ones. There are thousands of these organizations and more. They didn't exist before. So humankind, compassion, empathy has increased enormously as a result of those incredibly bloody and violent parts of history. So when we look at it in that way, then we don't think anymore in negative and positive, because one is the consequence of the other. Without these bloody wars and plagues, we wouldn't have been where we are now in our development. As a spiritual human being, we have a duty in this life to become as divine as possible. So we will stay up in the astral world as a peaceful, intelligent entity. There is another thing that you can explain based upon this principle. Look at the drained societies that you have in countries that have become wealthy and stable. As a result of the wealth and the stability, people become naturally spiritual. Whether they go to church or a yoga class or whatever, doesn't matter. But because of the stability, people become comfortable. Based upon that comfort, they develop more and more sattva, harmony in our terms. So what happens? Societies are after a period of wealth and growth, they start to diminish. Very restless societies where there is no harmony at all, they are booming when it comes to the numbers of people living there.
If I can make a comment, I feel like you can see examples both in that hierarchy of needs for child psychology, is it, Michelle?
For what technology?
Child psychology.
Psychology.
Maslow, and the hierarchy of needs for an individual child about how much what they can, certain things they need to fulfill before they can be expected to have the stability to get something higher.
Yeah.
But also the sort of spoiled youth of the developed countries,
Yeah.
sort of
thing. Exactly. Yeah.
Is it a good time to ask another question, or should I hold it? I'm not sure if it's connected. Maybe I should hold it for.
Well, just ask and then we'll see. If it's going to take a long time, we have to stop for.
It's about energy, and given that yoga is so much focused on energy, I was wondering if there's any commentary on modern technology and our reliance and dependence and sort of coexistence with so much modern technology that it's also utilizing energies and forms of electricity. I don't know if that's really relevant topic. Maybe just
What you see very much, I don't know if this is relevant to your question, but what you see very much is that people start relying so much on technology that they become very weak. When we were young, we were always jumping around and full of energy, bubbling with energy. If you look at young people today, they are much weaker than the older generations. If I look at my early morning class, 7 o'clock, average age is pretty high. Not that high actually, but most people are older than 50. People in their 50s, 60s, even 70s are practicing yoga here. What you see sometimes is that people bring their child to class because their child has health issues. The doctor tells them to exercise, and they hate exercise because they are always at home. They are either studying, and when they have free time, if they don't have to study, they are playing computer. And they don't play outside, they don't have physical education. They are 15 years old, 16 years old. Their mom brings them eventually in desperation to the yoga class because yoga is supposed to be easy. And they are so incredibly stiff and physically so weak. That is really a big problem in this society. Technology is taking over our duties, and so we will weaken as a result of that. And it's happening in a very rapid pace.
Is having children a good thing or?
Having children, your children become a mirror of you. But what you see with a lot of parents, especially in these days, is that many people forgot that they were a child themselves. And they have all kinds of expectations of their children, very adult kind of expectations that are totally not in line with the development of a child, and that is very violent. The one thing that's very important is when we look at children and judge their behavior, we should never forget that we were a child one day ourselves. I see many parents who do that, who just forgot who they were when they were a child. That's one thing. Having children is a big burden, of course, on their life, I think, but it is incredibly spiritual. Family is a melting pot of energies and spirituality.
Because it seems that as I go on in yoga, as my practice progresses, I don't really have a desire to have a child or to get married or something like that. It seems like I want more space for myself. Whereas in the past, it seems very, very important to my family, very important to me to get married, to have a kid, to do that thing.
Yeah, that is the idea that was put into your mind by society. Expectations. Then you practice yoga and you come down to yourself and you feel the need to respect that space that you feel you need. But I think the next step is when you have gone through the transformation, if the occasion arises, then you will have a child. And your child is very blessed to have you as a father or a mother because you have gone through this whole process of transformation. you will be able to give your child an incredibly big advance over other people, other children. I have seen children of moms who practice yoga before and during their pregnancy, and those children are totally different, you know. They're very calm, they're very wise in their way, even though they can't talk yet. You see that in their eyes. They're very observant, they absorb everything. All children do that, all babies do that, but children born from yoga mothers and possible yoga fathers, much more so. Very big, bright eyes, beautiful. You have to see that.
Among yoga practitioners, is it the tendency for people to not have children?
No, I don't think so. But I totally understand what you just said about not wanting children because you feel you need room and space for yourself. I'm in the same boat. But I feel that if I would plan, I would not have a child. But if I would be in the circumstances that it would be possible, I think I would be very blessed. Anyway, time will tell. You just go on doing what you have to do. Don't worry about it. That is your mental entity that is stepping in and telling you, hey, but this is, I was taught differently.